You're listening to the On the Bounce podcast, the show that is the ultimate source for all MLS fantasy news, tips, and everything else you need to dominate your leagues. Me, I'm JK, and I'm joined as always by my two hosts, Brady and Jarvis. Together, us three make up On the Bounce, and we're here to give you the best advice we can, along with some pretty great entertainment. Now, with all this out the way, let's jump right into today's episode. What is going on, everybody? Episode 16 is here. On the Bounce podcast is back. All three of us are back in action. It's me, JK. I got back in action, Big Baby, a.k.a. Josh Jarvis. What's going on, bub? How you doing?
I'm back from the Timberfields, boys, and I'm ready to talk about some soccer.
Okay. And, of course, I always got with me the gaffer himself, a.k.a. Brady. How's it going over there, bub?
Moy, lads. Going great. I'm hyped about MLS this week. It's going to be a fantastic week.
Correct. It is. It's going to be a big week. Of course, the week already started. We had our first little taste of MLS action, week 10, on Wednesday. That was Philly Union against FC Cincinnati. So if you listened to our last episode Tuesday, we let you know if you weren't aware. Both those teams played twice this week. So hopefully you took our advice. You played some Philly back line guys as they kept a clean sheet. They won 2-0, and they have another great opportunity to get another clean sheet Saturday night as they play at home again against New England Revolution. So that is the kickoff of the MLS week. Let us know if you had any of those guys, and if you were disappointed or happy. Hit us up over on Twitter, @OTBounce. We'd love to hear from you. So jumping right into the fantasy section, today's episode is a normal Friday. We're getting right back into the swing of things after missing last week's Friday episode. So we're going to hit you with our key matchups of the week from all three of us. And then, of course, you get all 9 of our fantasy key starters we think you have to have in your 11 this week. And the always important captain's log, where we tell you who you think or who we think you should slap the armband on. So we're going to go ahead, jump right into it. Jarvis, why don't you kick us off? What is your fantasy matchup of the week?
So my key fantasy matchup of the week is going to be Orlando versus Toronto FC. I was kind of looking all day because I was kind of torn which game to go with here, and this one stuck out to me after I looked at it because both of these teams are very close in the standings, and both are pretty solid teams. Toronto, I think, definitely has the edge here, but neither have great defenses, and both have been able to score some goals in these past 2-3 weeks. So I think we could see maybe a 2-3, even a 3-3 finish here. So I think there's going to be a lot of fantasy value to go around on both teams in this game.
Yeah, I like that prediction. Both these teams love a good shootout, so they could definitely be the case again this week. I think that's going to be a great game to watch and for fantasy. Brady, how about you? What's your key matchup of the week?
So this week I'm looking at the defenses this week. Actually, I feel like there's a good defensive matchup between Sporting KC and Atlanta United. Now we all know Atlanta United's been struggling to score this year, just like FCC has. It's been a struggle on offense, and SKC throughout most of the year has been pretty much impenetrable on defense. These last 3 weeks, though, it's been a little rough, but I think they're just going through a rough patch. I think they're gonna, bring it back to their roots and be a dominant defense again. And Atlanta United is also not a slouch on defense either. They've been holding teams to 2 and less pretty much the entire year. Actually, no team has scored more than 2 goals on them. So I like this game. I like some defenders on both sides, honestly, and I think that you can get some great value on all these boys.
I also like that prediction. Those are 2 top defenses that are going to be looking to get back on their scoring ways, but yeah, I don't know how one's going to end up.
Totally be a 0-0 draw on lots of clean sheet points.
Yeah, it definitely could be. At most, it would probably be 1-0. You know what I mean? It's not going to be anything too explosive, but you definitely get a lot of those clean sheet bonuses, so I like that. Switching over to the last key matchup of the week, that is my pick, and it is Minnesota versus Seattle. So I think this is going to be kind of like Jarvis's pick, Orlando-Toronto. Both 2 great scoring teams, both teams that have been in many shootouts this season. Seattle has a good defense, Minnesota has a good defense, but lately they've kind of switched pace a little bit. So, of course, last week in the double game week, Minnesota did only score once over those last 2 games and kept 2 clean sheets, but Seattle is a tough team to keep off of, the scoreboard. So I think this is going to be a game It could easily be like 3-3, even 4-3, like when Seattle played Toronto a couple weeks ago. And what was it, like week 7, week 8, Minnesota scored 3 goals back-to-back in both of those weeks. So this could definitely be a week where it's some high-scoring affairs, especially in this match. And there's a lot of good value in here. So be sure you're looking out for those games of the week. Lots of good offensive options for me and Jarvis, and a great defensive option from Gravy the Gaffer. So those are the key matchups of the week, some games to look out for fantasy. And now we're going to jump right into the most important segment, that is the fantasy starters. So each of us are going to give you 3 guys we think you got to have in your starting 11. And Jarvis, kick it off. Who's the first one?
All right, so for the first one, we're going with big Magnus Eriksson, boys.
Okay.
Midfielder from San Jose. Part of this pick is the matchup. Sadly, it's against FC Cincinnati, who have been playing pretty horribly the past month. But Magnus Eriksson, on the other hand, has not. He's been able to get involved in their offense pretty heavily. I mean, he a couple weeks ago had a goal and an assist. 2 weeks ago had an assist. He has been playing the full 90. He's definitely a starter for them, and he's just a facilitator in their midfield who always has that chance to get in on the attacking play. He's someone that the first few weeks he kind of struggled a bit, but after that he's really been a fairly consistent fantasy player. So I think he's someone who's going to have a high floor this week, probably going to be getting you 5-6 with the potential of a big goal or an assist in there as well.
Okay, and definitely could add an extra bonus point if they keep FCC off of the books, which shouldn't
You're
be too
not
hard
wrong.
since they haven't scored in 1912 is the last time they put one in.
Yeah.
So I like that pick. It's a good matchup, and like you said, he started to come along just like San Jose has. They've all of a sudden picked it up and become a
You're
good
not
team.
wrong.
All right, Brady, over to you. Who's your first pick for a key starter?
Hey, man, I'm piggybacking off this man Jarvis because he called it with this San Jose pick. But I'm going to their defense. I'm going with Shea Salinas. This man is an absolute
Yes.
baller. My guy is listed as a defender, but he actually plays in the wing most of the time, and he's actually been able to knock in 4 goals and 1 assist this season and has benefited from those 2 clean sheets because he is still listed as a defender. This is a guy who's really been breaking into the lineup, especially these last 4 or 5 weeks, 6 weeks actually. He's played the full 90, all of them except 2. This is a guy like Nick DeLeon that I was harping on at the beginning of the season. I'm loving these defenders who play in the forward, up top, get those extra offensive points, get some goals, and those clean sheets. And as Jarvis so eloquently put, they are playing FCC, which is pretty much an automatic clean sheet. So, I mean, you got a huge floor for this defender. Everything that he does on offense is basically just a bonus. He's been averaging 9.8 points over the past 5 games, and that's only with 2 clean sheets, so he's not even dependent on that clean sheet. So let's say FCC knocks in a goal, which I'm hoping and praying for. You're still looking pretty. You're still sitting pretty with Shea Salinas. This man is just a straight baller. This is one of my favorite picks this season. I really like this guy. I'm rolling him and Nick DeLeon out of my defense this week. It's big, lad. That's big.
If you've listened to at least one on the Bounce episode, you know that all of us love a good defender who gets up and
plays
attack
up.
and is not clean sheet dependent. Those are
Love
big
'em.
points because when they get that clean sheet, it's just the cherry on top. It's great.
I
like that pick a lot.
I honestly forgot to mention he's only 5.9 mil in value. Also, he's extremely cheap.
Yeah.
Great
Yeah,
value.
hopefully you guys listened to our first episode this week, Tuesday, which we give you our hidden gem segments. And Brady brought him up in the hidden gems. He's so cheap, but he's been playing so great. So you got to get in on him while you can and make some money at the least. So going off of what Jarvis was saying earlier, my first key starter is a guy we've mentioned all the time, and it's in Jarvis's key matchup of the week. That is Alejandro Pozuelo, a.k.a. Pozo. The boy who has been dominating MLS since he got in. Now, also on the last episode, me and Brady were talking about him. He had his, quote, worst week in MLS fantasy so far last week, where he only scored 6 points. And if that's your worst week, you gotta be playing him in fantasy. So he has actually played, that was his 5th game in MLS, and he's still averaging 13 points a game. It's ignorant how much he's scoring. Like Jarvis was saying, this is definitely a game that has shootout potential. Orlando and Toronto both have great offenses, but both haven't done too much on defense to slowing the other team down. So I think this is a normal game for Pozo where he comes out, scores double-digit points, could get an assist, could get a goal or two. So I love Pozo like always, and I'll talk about him in a later segment because that's how much I love him this week. So Pozo is my first key starter of the week. Starting it off back with round 2. Jarvis, back over to you.
All right. So for my second key starter, I'm going with big Daniel Steres, the defender for the LA Galaxy. You got to know him. You got to love him. He's been playing extremely well since like week 6 for fantasy. He had a lot of clean sheets in the past like 5 games. He's actually scored a goal as well, and he's up 2.5 mil on the season. So he's literally just been skyrocketing since the beginning of the season. That if you played him last week, he got you 14 big points, partially because it was a double game week. But don't let that fool you, boys. He is an absolute hound back there. I like the matchup a lot. The Red Bulls haven't been very threatening to a lot of teams other than FCC in quite some time. And like I said, this guy, he gets the clear balls. He's a true defender. He gets the interceptions. He passes out of the back line. So I'm loving him this week. I'm looking for him to have a pretty big week, get the clean sheet, and secure me some fantasy points.
I agree with you on that clean sheet. I think that could be a weird game where it could be like ending up 0-0, a nice 0-0 game. But it's gonna be tough for LA going across the country, and the Red Bulls play great at home. So I think it'll be a defensive battle though. So I like that pick a lot. Okay. Moving over to you, Brady. Who is your second key starter of the week?
Well, lads, with my second key starter of the week, I'm going with the number 1 scoring defender from last season in MLS Fantasy. I'm going with my guy, Graham Zusi. Now, my man has not been playing super fantastic over the previous 3 to 5 weeks. His highest scoring match is only 7 points. He has been playing consistent 90 minutes. He's been getting out there, but Sporting KC's just kind of struggled lately. And honestly, the point in the season where it kind of started was when they smashed Montreal 7-1. It's really strange because after SKC smashed them, they kind of went on a winless streak. They haven't won since that match. 3 draws, 1 loss. And then when Montreal got smacked, it kind of woke them up and did the opposite. They've only lost 1 game since then. 3 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss. I mean, I can't account for how that happened. I guess Montreal just woke up and SKC got too confident and fell asleep. But I still think SKC is one of the top teams in the MLS this season. And I think Zuzi's going to end up, as I've been saying a few times on the podcast, I still think Zuzi's going to end up in the top scoring for defenders at the end of the season. My guy plays on offense. Last year he knocked in 6 assists, 2 goals. This is a guy who's just one of the best class players in the MLS, period. And he's got a solid matchup this week where I think he can get a clean sheet. I mentioned it at the beginning of the show. SKC's playing Atlanta United, who's struggled to score this week. I can really see them getting that clean sheet, making them have a nice floor. And I think they're going to turn their struggles into a positive this week and get back on track, get some points. I think Graham Zusi is a great pick. Only $7.5 million right now. And I think for the quality, for the number 1 scoring defender last year, that's a steal. So throw Zusi in there, boys. I think you feel confident this week.
I like it. Yeah, it's just like you were saying earlier, that could definitely end up being a 0-0 game, and he could get that big clean sheet bonus. So you can't really go wrong with that. So sticking on the defensive side, my second key starter of the week is an LAFC defender, and that is Eddie Segura. So LAFC has had a pretty nice run over the last couple weeks defensively. Week 5, 6, 7, they had 3 clean sheets in a row. And not to say that we started that for them, but right before that happened, we did say that, they were only allowing like 1 goal every game and they were bound to hit a clean sheet run, and they did. So, shout out to us. You're welcome, LA. But on a real note, Segura is playing really great, just like LAFC collectively. He's averaging just under 5.5 points a game, only going for 7.3 million. And when they get the clean sheets, he's always at 8, 9, 10 points, just because he gets a lot of great defensive bonuses. He makes tackles, he clears balls, he gets interceptions. So he's the sweet spot of the LAFC defense. Pretty much, I think LAFC is almost a lock for a clean sheet this week. They play at home, because LAFC is always at home for some reason. And it's against Chicago Fire, who last week played a double game week, so they're going to be a little tired, and they didn't score a goal at all in those 2 games last week. So I think it's the perfect storm for LAFC to get a clean sheet. And if you don't want to spend that 7.3 for Eddie Segura, you could save a little bit of money and go for a guy like Jordan Harvey, who's under 7 mil, 6.9, and another great clean sheet option because he's on LAFC. So that is my second key starter of the week. You can't go wrong with LAFC pretty much at any position. Back over to you, Jarvis. Finish it up. Who is your last key starter?
So my last key starter of the week is a man I like to call old reliable, Bill Hamid. Goalkeeper for DC boys. He has been playing extremely well these past few weeks, well, the whole season. And they're playing Columbus Crew at home, who have looked actually lost for the past month. I don't know what happened, but they do not look good at all. And DC has definitely had some games where, you know, they've had their ups and downs. But I trust Bill Hamid in this. I trust DC's back line against a struggling Zardes and the Crew. So I'm expecting a clean sheet out of this one. Easy clapper. That's that.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with a keeper when you think, they're in for a great defensive day. And Bill Hamid is still up in the top 15 total scoring all season. So, like you said, he's had a great year.
He's tied with Zach Steffen for goalkeepers in scoring.
And unless DC United goes back to their old ways, this could be another 0-0 weird game because, like you said, Crew haven't been playing that great. They kind of look lost, like you just said. But DC United also has been slowing way down after their crazy hot start. So who knows what could happen? This could be one of those weird MLS weeks where that game's either 0-0 or like 6-5 because who on earth knows what's going to happen? But I like that pick. Can't go wrong with all reliable. Big Bill Hamid. All right, Brady, over to you. Who is your last pick?
All right, lads, let's talk about a forgotten man in the MLS. We're talking about Raul Ruidiaz from the Seattle Sounders. Joey was talking about how this Seattle-Minnesota game is poised to be kind of a shootout, and I definitely agree with that. I'm thinking that if Ruidiaz, he's still questionable, he's had a nagging injury. I told you he was forgotten about. He hasn't played in the last 5 weeks. You tend to forget about a guy who hasn't played in so long, but this is one of the most talented forwards in the MLS. When he plays, he is dominant, and he really completes that Seattle offense. So if he comes back in this lineup, look for some points to be scored. My guy has played in 4 games this season. He had 3 goals and 1 assist, and he averaged just a mean 7 points per game. And I think that's his floor. I think this man can go nuclear coming out if he gets back in the lineup, especially against this nice matchup. He is still the 6th most expensive forward in fantasy right now, but I think he's worth it. I think he's a player that if he does get in the lineup, what you see is what you get with him. I'll take Ruidiaz all day if this man gets in the lineup. But if not, keep your eyes on some other forwards on Seattle, such as Jomo Will Bruin as well. It's kind of a cheaper option. But I like the Sounders forwards this week. I think it's a solid option. And start your Ruiz, lads. Start them.
Listen, it's perfect because my last key start of the week is Jomo. And Will Bruin looks like he's still going to be out. And if Ruidiaz is out, you got to go with Jomo because last week he played central striker just like he has in the previous years. But this year he's been more out on right wing. And, as me in particular, we're kind of bagging on Jomo a couple episodes ago, but that's because he is very goal dependent, and that's just a thing this season for him. But if you start him this week, if he is like the lone starting striker because Ruidiaz is still out, he's only $7.8 million because he's on a decline price-wise. And when he does score goals, he puts up 12 points, 11 points, and he did score last week. So if he's in for a good game and if he's starting centrally, I think it's worth the gamble. Like I said, that Seattle-Minnesota game I think is bound to be a shootout, especially over in Minnesota, where they love to score a bunch of goals in their new arena. So I like the Seattle Strikers. You can't go wrong with it. They're still one of the best offenses in the league. And that'll do it. There is the 9 key starters we think you got to know and you got to throw in your starting 11. If you agree or disagree, hit us up on Twitter at OTBounce. Let us know, why you didn't like it or why you did like it. And hopefully come next Tuesday when we do our last episode or our next episode, you guys, you're saying thanks, OTB. You helped me dominate the league. So But moving on to the last segment, that is the captain's log. We're quickly going to tell you who we are sticking the armband on this week. And, usually this is a pretty point-blank segment. We just tell you who we think's going to have the most overall points. So, Brady, kick it off. I'm switching it up. Who is your captain's choice?
I've been sticking with this man. I think most people in the MLS fantasy have been for this season. I'm sticking with the guy, the myth, the legend, Carlos Vela. My guy's got a matchup with the Fire. He's been on fire for the last entire season. Last 2 weeks, been a little rough. 3 points, 8 points. But, I think LAFC gets right back on track this week. This is just an easy option for me. I'm not taking the band off of Carlos until I really need to. He's still averaging the most points per game in the MLS. 11 goals, 5 assists. Come on. Captain Carlos.
Yeah. You can't not captain him when he's scoring 30 more points than the guy in second overall scoring. So it's pretty tough to, choose against Carlos, especially with the great matchup like he has again. So I like it. Jarvis, who is your captain's choice this week?
So, again, not too surprising for me. Ibrahimovic. I know you said that you are thinking it's a shutout, but I think Ibra's got a goal or two in him in this game. But if you do feel that way, and maybe Carlos Vela is a bit too pricey for you, at some point, Carlos Vela is scoring all these goals. Diego Rossi is going to have to open back up a little bit. I know he's having a really, really bad, past 4 games, but at some point he's going to have to get back in the swing of things. And like you were saying earlier, this matchup is really bad for Chicago. They're going to be dead. They have to travel super far, and it's set up for LAFC to be able to go off this week. So maybe another a sleeper option for you there. A sneaky sleeper is what I was going for, but I had a stroke, so I couldn't say it.
Okay, that's fair. Well, you're revived and you finished it, so that's cool. But yeah, you can't ever go wrong with Ibra too. Like, even no matter how bad the matchup are or whatever, he's one of those guys that's just like, yeah, but it's Ibra. Like, he could literally go off any day. So you can't go wrong with it. There's not much to argue there. And to finish out the captain's log, I'm going with another guy that's hard to argue with, and that is Pozo. He's, like I said earlier, he's still averaging 13 points a game. He is in the top 10 overall fantasy scoring, and he's only played 5 games, so, that kind of tells you something. He's pretty good. All 3 of the captain's choices we gave you are pretty much the 3 best players in the league. They are just miles ahead of everyone else, and they run circles around people on offense. So you can't go wrong with any of these choices. They all got great matchups, maybe besides Ibra, but it's Ibra, like we've said. These are just the guys that could go nuclear and should go nuclear every week. So that is our captain's choices of the week, and that will wrap up episode 16. Anything you guys want to bring up or talk about before we close this one out?
I got nothing.
I don't believe so.
All right, well, I'm good too. So that'll do it for episode 16 from On the Bounce. If you guys have any questions or comments, hit us up once again over on Twitter at OTBounce. Check out the website, otbounce.com. And thank you, big shout out to everybody that's been listening to us, whether it's over on Spotify, iTunes, or Podbean. Thank you for listening to us. It's been great so far. We're not even 20 episodes deep, and it's been fun. We're 10 weeks into the MLS season. It's been great. And if you could, wherever you're listening, follow, like, subscribe, leave a comment, do whatever, because it's greatly appreciated. So that'll do it for me, JK, Brady, Gravy the Gaffer, Josh Jarvis. We're out of here, boys. We'll see you guys Tuesday. Deuces.